If you've ever called your child by the wrong name, forgotten where you were driving, or just felt like your thoughts were stuck in molasses, you're not alone. Brain fog, or what doctors call cognitive impairment, is a frustrating and sometimes frightening symptom of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. But here's the good news. There are steps you can take to clear that mental haze and feel more sharp and focused. That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode, what thyroid thrivers need to know about brain fog. Hello, thyroid thrivers, and welcome back to another episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast, with bi-weekly episodes dedicated to helping you eat well, live well, and feel well. I'm Ginny Mahar, a functional medicine health coach, cordon bleu chef, and your thyroid health and cooking coach. So if you're ready to get inspired, informed, and empowered with thyroid-friendly food and lifestyle topics, expert interviews, and tales from the healing journey, you're in the right place, friend. Let's dig in. Hello, thrivers, and welcome back to the show. Today we're tackling a symptom that a lot of thyroid thrivers are struggling with, brain fog. So in today's episode, we're going to cover what thyroid brain fog is and why it happens, how your thyroid and brain are connected, like what's the link there. We'll talk about some of the most common causes of brain fog for thyroid patients, and some actionable, practical steps that you can take to help clear brain fog and reclaim your mental clarity. And throughout today's episode, we'll also cover some foods that you can incorporate to help with brain fog and just support brain health and cognitive health. Are you ready? All right, let's dig in. So let's start by talking about what brain fog is. We'll just start with the basics. So imagine, forgetting your own phone number or just feeling like you are literally walking through a mental fog. That is brain fog. It's more than just forgetting where you put your keys. It is a persistent difficulty with focus, with memory, with just general mental clarity. And for thyroid thrivers, brain fog often feels like this very slow, kind of sluggish mental state that makes even very simple tasks feel overwhelming. There's a statistic that nearly 20% of women in the United States have hypothyroidism, which is sad enough on its own. But what's more sad is that the majority of them remain undiagnosed, and brain fog could be their first clue. So this topic is really important if you're struggling with this, if you know someone who's struggling with this, and who isn't getting, the care that they need and deserve, and maybe isn't aware of that thyroid-brain connection and that connection with hypothyroidism and brain fog. So why does this happen? It all comes down to the thyroid's role in delivering energy, right? I always say thyroid issues are energy issues because the thyroid helps regulate your body's metabolism. It actually impacts every single system and cell in the body. So even though the thyroid is just this small little gland, it has a huge impact. And when your thyroid is underactive, as in the case of hypothyroidism, your brain isn't getting the energy that it needs to function optimally. And as a result, you can end up experiencing some cognitive issues like that poor concentration, like forgetfulness, like trouble recalling words. So let's talk a little bit more about the thyroid-brain connection. How exactly does the thyroid impact your brain? Let's go a little bit deeper into this. Brain fog isn't just in your head. It's not just, a matter of what's happening in between your ears. The brain is part of an entire body and the entire system. So it's in your thyroid, it's in your gut, it's in your lifestyle. It could be in things like the stress you're under. It could have to do with things like hormonal changes you're going through. So there's a lot of different things that can affect, your cognitive clarity. But with the thyroid, clearing brain fog really does require, I find, a whole health approach. Thyroid hormones, specifically T3 and T4, play a really key role in brain health. They actually regulate everything from energy production to nerve function. So when your thyroid isn't producing enough thyroid hormones, like with hypothyroidism, or when your cells aren't able to utilize those thyroid hormones or the thyroid hormone medication you're taking, your brain can't operate at full or normal capacity. Okay? Now, hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's are two thyroid conditions that are very commonly linked to brain fog. Hashimoto's is, of course, an autoimmune condition that targets and damages the thyroid, often leading to hypothyroidism. In fact, Hashimoto's is far and away the leading cause of hypothyroidism, accounting for more than 90% of cases in the US and other developed countries. So remember, nearly 20% of women in the US are affected by hypothyroidism. So brain fog can be a pretty widespread issue. And just like we have to advocate for ourselves when it comes to getting the thyroid care we need and deserve, we also have to advocate for ourselves if brain fog is getting to be an issue. It could be your thyroid, so that needs to be looked at and tested. And this is one example of why, unfortunately, so many cases of hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's go undiagnosed, because doctors don't always connect those cognitive symptoms to thyroid health. Instead, patients hear things like, oh, that's normal, or you're just getting older, it's not a big deal, right? Or let's talk about dementia and Alzheimer's without checking your thyroid levels. We'll dig into that a little bit more, but before we go there, let's talk about some common causes of thyroid-related brain fog. So now that we understand that brain fog thyroid connection, let's look at like some of those contributing factors so that you can maybe start to think about your next steps for help and treatment if this is an issue for you. So number one, in terms of common causes of thyroid brain fog, are imbalanced thyroid hormones. So if your TSH, T3, or T4 levels are not optimized, brain fog can be really persistent even with treatment. So I'll say that again. Brain fog can be persistent even with treatment. Okay? So maybe you've never had your thyroid tested. Maybe you don't know if you have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, but you're experiencing brain fog. That's one scenario where that's a good time to ask your doctor, in addition to the other things you'll talk about, can we please check my thyroid? I want to make sure that that's okay. For most of you listening, because you're here, obviously part of the Hypothyroid Chef audience and the Thyroid-Healthy Bites audience, probably most of you already have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. For most of us, we're on thyroid hormone medication like levothyroxine. Maybe some of us are on natural desiccated thyroid. We're on various thyroid hormone medication. That's basically a supplemental thyroid hormone to make up for the thyroid hormone that our thyroid isn't able to produce on its own. Now, if those medication levels, and not just the medication levels, but the levels of thyroid hormone in your body, like what is your body doing with the medication you're taking? If those are low, you can end up still having brain fog even with treatment, even with a normal TSH. I'll share my own story on this. That if you've been listening a while, you've heard me talk about, my dark night of the thyroid soul. The first 4 years after I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, I only was getting my TSH tested. I was on generic levothyroxine. I didn't know anything else. I wasn't offered any other tests. I wasn't offered any other medication options. My TSH was normal. Okay, that was being looked at. And I was on thyroid hormone medication that, most patients typically get, which is levothyroxine. But despite a normal TSH and despite being on proper medication and having a diagnosis, I had severe brain fog. And I had that for most of those first 4 years. There were times when I would be driving my car and think, I'm not sure I should be operating a vehicle. That's how spacey I am. I would have to really concentrate about things like, don't forget that the dog is in the back of the car, for example. Things that just didn't seem normal to me. It was scary. It was concerning. Also, I've always worked in one form or another as a writer, food writing. I've done copywriting. I've done memoir and personal essays before I did this, all kinds of creative writing and professional writing. And boy, did my writing get compromised during those 4 years. I really couldn't work in that capacity anymore because my lexicon was compromised. My word recall was so compromised to form sentences, to find that flow that came so easily and naturally to me before my hypothyroidism diagnosis. It was like, this is gone. I mean, which was terrifying. It was grief-inducing, and it scared me. Now, after 4 years of suffering and struggling and having all kinds of different thyroid-related health issues that I was told had nothing to do with my thyroid because my TSH was normal, I hit rock bottom. I found a new holistically oriented doctor. I started demanding and looking for better answers and better treatment. I optimized my thyroid hormones. I started optimizing my food and lifestyle, and I got my health back. And I won't go into the full details of that story, as so many of you have already heard it. But brain fog was a big part of that. And what I really want you to hear and know is that that brain fog can be severe, even with a normal TSH, even on levothyroxine. This is one reason why it's so important to ask for a complete thyroid panel that includes not just TSH, but free T3, free T4, and ideally TPO antibodies so you can see whether or not you have autoimmunity. That was something I didn't know during those 4 years. So that's kind of a side point there, but very important to look at that full thyroid panel so that you can see, is this medication I'm taking, which levothyroxine is T4 only medication, and T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone that has to be converted in the body in places like your gut and your liver to the active form of thyroid hormone, which is T3. Okay, and for a lot of people, myself included, we don't necessarily convert that T4 medication very effectively into active thyroid hormone, which is T3. So people like me tend to do better on either combination therapy, which includes not just a T4 medication, but an additional T3 medication like Cytomel or liothyronine, or an NDT medication, meaning natural desiccated thyroid hormone, which is, it comes from the thyroid gland of pigs, and it includes T4, T3, T2, and T1. Okay, so not knowing that, not having that medication optimized, not being able to see from a complete thyroid panel that, oh, I'm taking plenty of T4. It's making my TSH look normal, but my T3 is low. It's not converting in my body the way that it's supposed to. So I was actually, during those 4 years, still hypothyroid, and it isn't just that the medication needs to be converted from T4 to T3. Your cells also need to be able to take that thyroid hormone up. They have thyroid hormone receptors to uptake that thyroid hormone and give your body the energy that it needs. So we need good cellular health, good mitochondrial health, good thyroid hormone conversion. We need that complete thyroid panel to understand that. And then we need to take that information and be working with a practitioner who is educated, well-versed, and willing to help you get on the proper medication, the optimal medication for you. And optimal for you means the right type of medication at the right dosage for you. There's not necessarily one that's better than the other. And yeah, some patients do just fine on levothyroxine alone, but some don't. Okay, that's a really, really important point that a lot of people don't understand, and that unfortunately a lot of doctors don't understand. T4 alone is not an effective solution for a lot of us, and it can leave a lot of us with severe residual symptoms, like for me, severe brain fog that compromised my daily life, my mood, my health, my happiness, my career. So really, really important to make sure that you know what your thyroid hormone levels are and that you have a doctor who's willing to have that conversation with you, understand and look at those numbers, and help you find the right medication at the right dosage for you where you're not having those residual symptoms. So that's number one, okay? Another common cause of thyroid brain fog are gut health issues. The thyroid gut connection is very real. What's also real is the gut-brain axis, okay? So as thyroid patients, we are far more prone to gut health issues like imbalances in our gut flora, gut dysbiosis, SIBO, leaky gut, which is clinically known as intestinal permeability, gut inflammation, constipation, things like that. All of those things can contribute to brain fog. So that gut health axis with the thyroid and brain health is very real, and all of that can contribute to brain fog. Another common cause, nutrient deficiencies. So looking at key nutrients like selenium, zinc, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, and magnesium. All of these are critical for brain function. All of these also happen to be key thyroid supporting nutrients. So really important to be aware of those nutrient deficiencies. Lifestyle factors. This is another big one. Again, it takes a whole life, whole health approach, right? We might be taking supplements, we might be on proper thyroid hormone medication, but if we have unchecked chronic stress, if our sleep hygiene is poor, if our sleep quality is poor and we have unaddressed, untreated sleep issues, if we are sedentary and have a lack of physical activity, all of those things can be major players in brain fog. So really important to look at our stress, our sleep, how we're moving our bodies. Are we moving our bodies regularly? Things like that. Next is food sensitivities. I'll spend a little bit more time on this one because this is kind of a big one. So gluten sensitivity in particular has been linked to worsening brain fog in some thyroid patients. And I'll share another personal story with you here around my brain fog. And this is something that I discovered during those 4 dark and scary years, the first 4 years after my diagnosis. I had this really strong gut feeling and also just a physiological awareness that what I'm eating is definitely affecting my symptoms. And I'm not really sure how, but I just know this is happening. And I had started looking for answers. And I read a book that many of you may have heard of called Grain Brain by Dr. Perlmutter. And that book inspired me to take a little break from grains. I think I went, 7-10 days. I just said, I'm just going to see if I feel any different by cutting out grains. And holy smokes, it was night and day. That moment, that personal experiment was really the end of my severe brain fog. Also, there were those other factors. Of course, I had to, get better thyroid hormone treatment and optimize my meds and all of that stuff. But boy, that was a huge one, was cutting out grains. So that was a big light bulb moment for me. And it was more personal proof that, wow, there is a very strong connection here between what I eat and how I feel. And not just how I feel, but what I eat, specific foods causing specific thyroid symptoms. And I started the process. This is what I teach people in my Thrivers Club community. I started that process personally of connecting the dots between which foods cause which symptoms so that I had a better understanding of what are the foods that, are good for me, nourishing me, and that love me back, right? So there's a lot of personal data we can collect there. So basically what happened is my diet, just because of that, as a result of that experiment, my diet went from more of what I would call like a healthy American diet, where I was, always ate organic, like since my teens, always cooked from scratch, right? Didn't do a lot of processed foods and things like that. But I was still eating like what I would call a healthy American diet with bread and dairy and pasta, as kind of like foundational staples, right? That I switched to more of an anti-inflammatory style of eating that to this day focuses on one, lots of colorful produce, 4 carbs, 2 high-quality protein sources like wild-caught fish, grass-fed beef, other plant-based proteins, and finally 3 healthy fats. But the turning point for me was really that moment when I cut out grains. Now, today I do eat some gluten-free grains like rice, quinoa, buckwheat. I'll occasionally have certified gluten-free oats, and I am able to enjoy those without issue. But what's shifted for me is that they're no longer at the bottom of my food pyramid, so to speak, right? They're not so foundational in my diet. They're less of a focus. And because of that, and because of lots of gut healing and other, food and lifestyle changes I've made, I seem to tolerate them just fine. And my choice is to maintain as much food freedom as I can. So I do make the choice to enjoy some grains on occasion. That said, as an experiment, cutting them out was a game changer back then. And I never forgot that. And because I learned that, and because I learned to identify, here we go. I know this feeling. This is what happens when I overdo it on grains. So I can feel when I've started to maybe go down that slippery slope with the rice and the rice pasta and the oatmeal, right? And my brain fog might start to kind of creep back in. So that's when I know, it's time to dial it back on my grain consumption. This is just my approach. It's what works for me, and what works for you may be different. And I'll tell you also that I can think of several coaching clients and Thrivers Club members, and if you're listening, you know who you are. I can think of many who feel way better without any grains. And I do hear brain fog listed commonly as one of the symptoms that lifts without grains. So that book, Grain Brain, by Dr. David Perlmutter, really outlines more about why this happens. The 3 main reasons that he gives in the book for why grains contribute to brain fog and cognitive decline are: number 1, inflammation, which grains, and especially gluten-containing grains like wheat, barley, and rye, can trigger and contribute to. Number 2, he cites blood sugar, which we're hearing a lot more about these days, which I think is fantastic for us all to become more aware of that and how our eating habits impact our blood sugar spikes and dips, and how high carb diets, like those that are very heavy in grains, can lead to insulin resistance and the blood sugar roller coaster that can impair cognitive function. I think this is especially prominent, with refined carbohydrates and high diets that are high in refined carbohydrates. And 3, he cites leaky gut and the gut-brain connection. And gluten in particular is known to contribute to intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut. So those are just a few reasons why food sensitivities, especially grains, and most especially gluten, can contribute to brain fog. Gluten, by the way, I'll remind you, is also the primary dietary trigger for thyroid autoimmunity like Hashimoto's. Dairy is another culprit that can also contribute and can contribute to things like leaky gut. And food sensitivities are always going to be unique to the individual, but those are some of the most common suspects to think about if you're struggling with brain fog. Ever since cutting out grains and then eventually adopting an eating style that incorporates some gluten-free grains in moderation, I haven't really dealt with brain fog. When it has crept back up, it's been one of 3 things. Either, like I said, I'm ODing on grains, I might be underdosed on my thyroid hormone medication, or there might be something else going on. Like an instance comes to mind a few years back where I started having brain fog due to sulfur intolerance. And this brain fog felt different in my body. Like it was a very different physical sensation than the brain fog that I had, during those 4 dark years of the first 4 years of my thyroid journey. This was a different kind of brain fog. And it took a while to sort this out, right? As it sometimes can. Maybe some of you can relate to this, but what I discovered eventually is that I was dealing with a sulfur intolerance, and I was actually able to remedy that with the help of my naturopath, who guided me towards some supplements that help me process sulfur and those very healthy sulfur-containing foods like cruciferous vegetables, for example, more easily. So now I can eat garlic and onions and kale and broccoli and all those sulfur-rich foods for the most part without issue. Those are just some personal examples of food sensitivity-induced brain fog, and also maybe shines a little bit of light on some upstream causes which can take some figuring out, but are indeed figure-outable. So common causes of thyroid brain fog: imbalanced thyroid hormones, gut health issues, nutrient deficiencies, lifestyle factors, and food sensitivities. All right, let's move on and talk about some practical steps you can take to help clear brain fog. So if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, this is me, this is an issue for me, I don't know what to do, where do I start? I'm here for you. First, I want you to know that I help thyroid thrivers work through this every single day in my Thrivers Club community. So I just want you to know that support is here for you if you need it. And my membership includes access to one-on-one coaching with me if you want to chat about your brain fog and other pesky symptoms that thyroid medication often leaves behind. So if you want my personal support, joining my private group health coaching community is the best way to get that. In the meantime, or if you're not ready for that step, let's talk today about some steps that you can take to start feeling better. So number one, no surprise here, optimize your thyroid treatment. Work with your doctor to make sure that your thyroid hormone levels are in the optimal range. Now, the optimal range is not necessarily the normal range. There is a difference between the normal range for thyroid hormones and the optimal range. Sometimes the optimal range is called the functional range. Functional medicine practitioners are more likely to go by that optimal range, which is more narrow. So it's a little bit, think of it as more like getting your thyroid levels more fine-tuned instead of just, oh, you're generally in like the normal range. The way that my mentor, Mary Showman, describes this is like shoe sizes. If you're a size 8 and somebody puts you in a size 6, even though size 6 might be a normal shoe size for women of your size and stature or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be comfortable in a size 6. You're probably going to be actually really uncomfortable. So just as kind of like a parallel there for you to start thinking about why it's so important to try and get those thyroid hormone levels in the optimal range. And what's most important too, even beyond the numbers, is how you feel, right? You should feel good. If you feel like you've got a lot of residual symptoms, you deserve a professional medical conversation with your healthcare practitioner about looking at not just TSH, but looking at a complete thyroid hormone and also looking at possibly other thyroid hormone medication options, like maybe going from just a T4 medication to a combination therapy where you're taking T4 and T3 medication, or maybe discussing natural desiccated thyroid hormone. There's options there. You deserve to know about those options, and you deserve to work with someone who's willing to help you optimize your thyroid treatment so you can function. Okay, I don't think that's too much to ask. Number 2, you can support your brain with good nutrition. So nutrition, always a huge factor in how we feel. And your brain is no exception to that rule. So you can focus on brain boosting foods like some of the kind of superstars here are wild-caught salmon, walnuts, blueberries, especially wild blueberries, and dark green leafy vegetables, or DGLVs. These are packed with omega-3s, antioxidants, essential vitamins, all of which is going to help support your cognitive function. One of the first things that I do if I start feeling a little tired or brain foggy or just flared up, like with my Hashimoto's, is I will start incorporating some really nutrient-dense anti-inflammatory meals. Soups come to mind, also smoothies. So like I'll make a smoothie with maybe some coconut milk, or coconut water as the liquid, and then I'll pack in lots of those super nutrient dense wild blueberries. If we've got wild huckleberries in the freezer that we picked last summer, I'll throw some of those in. I might throw some frozen greens in. I'll throw a little bit of banana in for some potassium. I love to use flaxseed or chia seeds for added omega-3s. Cranberries are great. When I do that, I just notice a difference right away. Like I can feel my cells just like drinking up those antioxidants, and it's an instant course correction for me. It's just a great way to support myself. Like right now I'm thinking about in the summertime when we tend to get a lot of wildfire smoke, which can really kind of just suppress our system. People don't feel good. We get headaches. We are kind of toxed out. We're not breathing great air, and the body needs extra support. That's another instance of when I do that. But also with brain function, if I'm feeling a little foggy, something like that can really help. I'll do that, try to do that regularly for 3-5 days, and I immediately feel better. Another kind of superstar food to include is turmeric. So turmeric has highly anti-inflammatory properties that can help improve brain function. So one way you can do this is you can whip up a batch of my Easy Instant Golden Milk Mix, which I recently covered on my YouTube channel. I'll include a link in the show notes for you for that recipe and video. Or you can try any of my other anti-inflammatory recipes featuring turmeric, but it helps. Turmeric is incredibly brain supportive. Also, stay hydrated, right? This one's kind of, it's one of those things that's like a no-brainer, but it's also so easy to overlook, forget, and be like, oh, whoops, I completely forgot to drink water for like the last 8 hours. Who's been there, right? I know I'm not the only one. But dehydration can very much worsen brain fog and fatigue. And even just that fatigue itself can make that brain fog worse. Of course, when we feel tired, we're not going to think as clearly. Overall, you just want to really eat a thyroid-friendly diet, which is rich in whole foods, healthy fats, high-quality proteins, lots of colorful produce, right? And remember, focus on those brain-boosting foods. Salmon, walnuts, blueberries, dark green leafy vegetables. Finally, you want to make sure you are addressing any deficiencies that you might have with supplements. And these really work best when they're tailored to the individual. So I always recommend consulting with your trusted functional or holistic healthcare professional about supplements. And it's also really important to, be careful with supplements. If you're on other medications, if you have other health issues, you need to talk to someone who understands your entire health history and all those other factors, right? So that you're safe with those. Moving on, let's talk about some lifestyle steps that you can take to prevent or relieve brain fog. Prioritizing sleep is another thing, like hydration, right? It's easy to kind of overlook and go, whoops, I just stayed up till past midnight for the last 4 nights in a row. And lo and behold, I'm not really thinking clearly. Really, really important to prioritize good sleep hygiene, to aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. Some ways that you can support good quality sleep are by creating a calming bedtime routine, reducing screen time before bed. Like, don't lay in bed looking at your phone or your tablet, that blue light, and also just the content, right? The media, the news right now, it's highly distressing. Okay. Like, those things are not good habits before bed. So, shifting our habits around that, they're little things that can make such a huge difference. Also, getting morning sunlight can make a big difference if possible. If it's not possible, you can use something like a happy light if you need to get some of that light that reinforces a healthy circadian rhythm. And also in the evening, like after dinner, try to make a habit of turning the lights down and just kind of letting your body know, like, it is time to start winding down, calming down. I'm just going to do relaxing things and start preparing myself for a night of quality rest. When I can't sleep, I love a good sleep meditation, or sometimes I'll do bedtime stories on Insight Timer. I try not to lean on those too regularly as a crutch, but if I'm having a hard time falling asleep, those are kind of like my surefire go-tos. But honestly, I'll tell you, good sleep hygiene and nutrition, making sure I have enough protein with my evening meal, not eating a bunch of sugar before bed, not drinking too much liquid before bed. All that stuff has pretty much corrected any sleep issues I had. So I sleep pretty well these days, but I know a lot of thyroid thrivers don't. Sleep issues are, very common with thyroid issues. It's something I talk with my coaching clients and Thrivers Club community members about regularly, is really fine-tuning our sleep and our sleep hygiene, and also kind of trying to uncover maybe some root cause issues for sleep issues if you're having them, and correcting those sleep issues it's one of those very foundational things that can correct so many other things: our mood, our cognition, our ability to work out, feel good, function, all of the above. The next lifestyle factor we have to talk about is stress. Managing stress, managing it with regular self-care, managing it with stress-reducing activities like mindfulness, yoga, breath work, adult coloring, painting, reading your favorite book, sitting by the window and enjoying your favorite cup of tea, taking the dog for a regular walk, whatever it is that helps you just, settle in, be in your body. Stop the constant input that technology bombards our brains with. Give yourself those quiet moments where we can just kind of reset the brain and normalize those cortisol levels and nourish and nurture our nervous systems. This is huge. This is so huge with brain fog. So many of us are just in a constant state of high stress. We have unchecked high cortisol. We are in constant fight or flight mode. Self-care is so underestimated in how much it can help us with everything, right? And including with brain fog. So remember, regular self-care, daily if you can. It doesn't take a lot, 10 minutes. 10 minutes a day. That's what we practice in the Thrivers Club. And boy, it can make an absolute world of difference. Also, and this will probably come as no surprise to any of you, exercise. Exercising regularly, getting regular movement increases blood flow to the brain, which is going to boost your energy. It's going to improve your mood. Even a daily walk can make a huge difference. And you know what? You don't always have to do a full workout. For your brain, for your cognition, you can try just getting up from your desk if you work at a desk and just do what I call an exercise snack, right? This could be like 5 minutes. Maybe you do 20 squats. Maybe you do plank. Maybe you go up and down the stairs for a few minutes. Maybe you just put your shoes on and go walk around the block. I love exercise snacks. A few of my favorites are I have a rebounder, so like a mini trampoline. I love to get on that for about 5 minutes. I'll, usually put in my headphones and I'll put on a couple of my favorite songs and I'll just bounce just to stimulate lymphatic flow, stimulate circulation, get some blood flowing, get some oxygen to my brain. Another really fun exercise snack that I love is my balance board. So this looks kind of like a skateboard. You put it on top of this cylinder and then, put your feet on either side of that and balance on it. Maybe you've seen something like that before. I love that. I'll take my shoes off and I'll do that for, again, a couple songs on my headphones. And this winter, I've made a really concerted effort to walk the dog, which takes about 20 minutes in our neighborhood after lunch. What a game changer. What a game changer for my cognition, for my brain power, and for my focus. Because a lot of us find that, after lunch, maybe our brain power kind of starts to flag a little bit, right? And when I walk, I can, when I give myself that break of the 20-minute walk, I can come back, get back to work, and go till 5, no problem. When I don't do that, I'll get to about the 3:30 mark, and suddenly I find myself just staring at my computer. Maybe I get distracted by social media. I start going in circles. I start losing focus and productivity. And those little midday exercise breaks are a game changer for the brain and for helping to just refresh that focus, get the blood flowing, get the oxygen flowing. And remember, every little bit counts, right? Just a 5-minute exercise snack. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 3. It will make a difference. Another thing you can consider is a gluten-free or grain-free trial. So some thyroid patients report significant improvements in their brain fog after eliminating gluten or grains. I already shared my own personal story with you about this, and I hear it and see it all the time in the Thrivers Club. Of course, you always want to discuss dietary changes with your trusted functional or holistic healthcare practitioners, but this is one of the most common recommendations for thyroid patients. And my opinion as a health coach, right? Not a doctor, not a nutritionist, as a health coach, my opinion based on my experience as a patient, based on my functional medicine training, based on my experience working with coaching clients, is that while not everyone experiences relief or benefits from cutting out gluten or grains, enough people do that I do think it's worth experimenting with, if nothing else, so that you can connect the dots between which foods contribute to which symptoms in your body. Now, in some cases, the changes thyroid thrivers experience from eliminating gluten are really profound. And while I wouldn't say it's common, I have seen people reverse their diagnosis with changes like cutting out gluten or cutting out grains. So it's something to be aware of, and I think something to consider if you haven't already tried it. Another simple kind of practical tool you can use if you're experiencing thyroid-related brain fog is just those basic remembrance tools, writing things down, using checklists, breaking tasks into smaller steps, sticky notes, phone reminders. All these things can help keep you on track. And keep in mind, some cognitive decline is normal with age. Some cognitive impairment is to be expected if you had a horrible night's sleep or if you're under a ton of stress, for example. So don't freak out every time you forget someone's name or can't remember why you walked in the room. If that's happening once in a while, some of that to a degree can be normal and expected. I've always been a person who needs to write things down, and I have a rather involved calendar system that works for me. I love. I've, been practicing at this for years as someone who is self-employed, and I have to keep myself on task, right? So this is something I think about a lot. One little thing that I found that's worked for me is if I have appointments, I'll set an alarm on my phone when it's time to get ready for them, because I'm just one of those people. I'll get so focused on what I'm doing that if I don't have that reminder, I'll look up and go, oh my gosh, I'm late, So finding some workarounds that work for you for the little things can be helpful. That said, if you feel like significant confusion, significant brain fog, persistent memory issues are an issue for you, it's really important to know that that's not normal and it could indicate an underlying health issue, and talk to your doctor about it as soon as you possibly can, taking into consideration all that we talked about today. So you can go into that conversation empowered with the information you need to advocate for yourself and to know what some of the different possible root causes could be, what they might be for you, what rings true for you, and maybe some of the practical things that you can also try in the meantime. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and this is such a common issue that I know the community would as well. So I'd love it if you could share what has helped you manage brain fog, or maybe what's one small change that you can make today to start supporting your brain health. If you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and share with us in the comments or just send me a DM on my Instagram at hypothyroidchef. All right, we covered a lot of ground today, so let's review what we've covered. First, brain fog is a very common and frustrating symptom for thyroid thrivers, often linked to hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. That thyroid-brain connection is very real and very powerful because thyroid hormones are essential for energy, nerve function, and overall brain health. Some of the common causes of brain fog include imbalanced hormones, including thyroid hormones, nutrient deficiencies, gut health issues, and lifestyle factors. Some of the actionable steps you can take include optimizing your thyroid treatment, very important. Also getting a complete thyroid panel, supporting your brain health with good nutrition and sleep, also hydration, managing stress, and using some of those cognitive strategies. And finally, keep in mind that certain foods can help support our brain health and help combat brain fog, including omega-3 rich fish, leafy greens, nuts, and those antioxidant-packed berries. So to wrap it up today, brain fog can feel really isolating. It can be scary, it can be overwhelming, but it is not something that you have to live with. And by addressing some of the root causes that we talked about today and making small sustainable changes, you can start to feel clearer and more focused. If you found today's episode helpful, hit that like button or leave a star review. And if you're ready to stop going it alone and finally get some help, answers, and support, I encourage you to check out my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide to start making thyroid supportive, gut health supportive, and brain health supportive meals. Or get my personal support and the support of an amazing community of other thyroid thrivers who get it, who know what it's like, who have been through it, and who have found their paths to thriving health when you join the Thrivers Club, where we dive deeper into all kinds of topics like brain fog and learn how to practice this whole health approach to thriving that we talked about today. So you can find links to all of that in the show notes. Until next time, I hope this episode has given you the information, inspiration, and empowerment that you need to make the best choices for your health. Brain fog might be one of the most common thyroid symptoms, but that doesn't mean you have to live with it or be debilitated by it. So never give up on finding the answers and help that you need to feel your best, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, or not. Thanks so much for spending this time with me and tuning into today's episode of the Thyroid-Healthy Bites podcast. If you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. Your support makes this show possible. For more thyroid healthy food and lifestyle inspiration, check out my free library of thyroid-friendly recipes and lifestyle content at hypothyroidchef.com and the Hypothyroid Chef YouTube channel. As we wrap it up, head to the show notes for information and links to everything we talked about today, along with the link to my free thyroid-friendly grocery guide download. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. See you next time.